But if you're using contests as your sole way of finding success, it's not the right path. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have on actually a successful screenwriter and friend of the show, Tracee Beebe. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's good to be back.
Well, we had some communication earlier, and you're like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about how to get a manager as a screenwriter. And I'm like always ready to talk about this because I think it's the number one, if not the biggest concern for any writer out there.
Yeah, it really is. I get asked that pretty regularly. And I mean, the bottom line is that there isn't one way. There's
Yeah.
a multiple different avenues that you can take. And what I wanted to talk about is kind of like the how to be ready. How do you know when it's time to even start reaching out?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to blow that shot, right? You don't want to, I know I certainly did it. I queried 100 managers very early on in my career, and got a bunch of read requests, but I wasn't ready. And so, how do you know when you're ready? Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the big question.
I think that's a great observation. I think writers, when you first get into it, it's this kind of like this Dunning-Kruger effect. Do you know what I mean? Like that bell curve where you
Totally.
start out and you don't really know a lot about screenwriting, but you don't think there's a lot to it. So you feel super confident and know exactly, but I'm a screenwriter. I wrote the script. Who
I
needs,
wrote
I mean,
this
do
one script.
I wrote this one script, and does it really need to be formatted? And so then after time, so you get you start kind of cocky, and you get it out there and you think everybody wants to read it because it is an achievement writing this first script.
Absolutely.
But over time, you start to realize, oh boy, there is so much more to this. And then you start to lose confidence
Mhm.
until eventually you kind of hit that moment of grizzled wisdom. That's the only way I can describe it.
That is such a great way to put it, Jeffrey. It is so true. We do start out with like, I did this thing that is like 90% of the rest of the world is just only going to talk about, but I actually wrote it.
Yep.
And it was a story that I love and it's resonating with me and the world needs to hear it.
Yeah.
And so you just go out there, you sort of guns blazing, like all that confidence in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great place to start. Absolutely. I think you kind of need that to get you started because there's so many people that don't ever take that first step, right? But
Yeah.
then you do hit that, like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And you're like, oh.
It does feel like a bottomless pit at one point where you start going, oh my God, I had no idea. What's the subplot? When you start kind of getting crazy with it. There is magic to that first script, though. I always feel writers, I think every writer has a story in them. And usually that first script is full of passion and even can do well in festivals,
Absolutely.
because there's so much truth behind your journey in it because you're putting yourself in the script. So they can
Right.
even do well. But really, when you get that second script is when you start realizing, okay, there's structure, there's character,
There's arc.
there's an arc,
Yeah.
there's conflict, so you start really kind of figuring that out. So I
Mhm.
think you're right. I think being self-aware of where you are in this journey and to look at it as a journey is crucial.
Yeah. And it really is a journey. And most of the time it's a much longer journey than we ever anticipated. Going back again to that kind of those early days where you're like, I have a script. Now I will get an agent, and then I will become famous and I will be a screenwriter. And it's like the right. And all of that will happen in the first, I don't know, six
Yeah.
months or a year. And of course, that's just wide-eyed. I mean, blissful ignorance maybe is the best way to put that.
I would totally agree with you. I mean, and I come from the worst spectrum of that because I optioned my first script. And
Yes,
so I thought like, oh, this is easy.
right.
you know? And then like, I don't know, I didn't option another script for like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years after that. I mean, I've been writing now for, I want to say like 15 years or something. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been a long time, and I'm hitting my stride now where like, yeah, I feel like my stuff is pretty decent and
Right.
can get out there and is ready for screen. But it does take that it's a journey, it's a craft. I mean, you're not 2, 3 years you can get good, but this is
Mhm.
like the overnight successes are always the writers who've been going at it for like 10 years.
Overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So true. Um, so I had another writer reach out to me the other day and say, I've gotten my script written. How do I know when I'm ready? And so there's a couple points that I wanted to bring up today
Yeah.
about that. And I've interviewed a bunch of managers, as I know you have as well. But one of the questions I always ask them is, how many scripts, how many finished screenplays should a writer come to you with? And in my early days, of course, I thought that was just one. And then in as I went along, I thought, oh, it's got to be a lot. They need to
Yeah.
have a whole trunk full of
Yeah.
stuff to be out there shopping with. And actually, it's a much more manageable number, and it's the kind of that sweet spot is 2 to 3,
Yeah.
which
That's
I
not
was kind of
bad.
surprised about when I first started hearing that. But of course, they have to be 2 to 3 of the right scripts. That doesn't mean
Killer
you've
scripts.
only
Yeah.
written 2 to 3 scripts. It means you have 2 to 3 ready for market in your brand screenplays. And I think that's where we maybe get some disconnect with writers, is like, I've written 3 screenplays, now I'm ready. Well, are they the right scripts? Do they
Yeah.
represent you? Are they marketable? Have you gotten them read by peers and by consultants, or is it just you and your mom thinking how great it is, right? So that, I think, is the number one thing to keep in mind, or maybe the number 2 thing. Actually, the number 2 thing is that you need to have those 2 to 3 really solid scripts that represent you as a writer, because that's what a manager is going to be going out and doing, is taking those screenplays that represent you and sharing you with
Yeah.
the world, right?
Yeah.
Sharing you with all of those development execs and studio execs and all of that can get you get it packaged or get it made or get you a writing assignment. So unless you have those, though, that are, and here's the kind of maybe the number 1 point, is that you need to be branded. And this is where half of your watchers are going to be like, and I'm out. They hate it when I say that.
No, it's true.
Right? You
Yeah,
have to
it's true.
be branded. And I know people get really bristly about that because they don't want to be put in a box. I have all these stories, and some of them are fantasy, and some of them are history, and some of them are horror, and I don't want to be put in that small pigeonhole box, right?
Yeah.
But I want to make sure to say that you don't have to only write one thing.
There you go.
You just need to have 2 or 3 things that are in that brand.
Yeah.
And then you can write as many of the other ones as you want.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, once you've gotten your foot in your door as a branded writer in whatever that specific brand is, then you can start kind of like, oh, hey, and here's this other avenue I kind of wanted to explore. Like when I got my foot in the door writing character-driven horror. And since then we just took out, my manager just started taking out a big budget, blow 'em up action, female-led action script.
Oh, wow.
And which I'm really excited about, that I never would have written before. But it was the right time. And I took kind of what I knew about character writing and what I knew about tension from my horror writing, and I put it into this action script. So just because you start out in one box doesn't mean you're not going to expand. I think that's important.
You're 100% right, and I love that you brought that up, because it's the writers that don't want to quote brand are shooting themselves in the foot, because people, I mean, I hate to say this, but people need to know what you are. And
Mhm.
in order for them to know what you are, you have to be like, like, for instance, I'm a thriller guy, right? That's what I'm known for. My thrillers, I've got one that's coming out. Finding Nicole's already shot. Super excited. Have we got other ones? Yeah. And I've been approached by producers saying, what else do you have? And I say, well, I have a bunch of other thrillers I've already written. And I'm building that profile. Can I
Right,
only write thrillers and that's it? No, I write other stuff. I've
right.
got stuff going to Joanne Hess and I wrote a couple of romantic comedies. We wrote a family animation film. Those are going to go repped at Scripps. Those are going to go get repped at Cannes. That's totally
Oh,
opposite of a
right.
thriller, but you have to kind of establish your base, right?
Yes,
Show that you can write, within that genre, and then you can start to expand. We
exactly.
we just did a film analysis on The Menu, brilliant film,
Mhm.
but the writers on The Menu started writing satire for The Onion.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then they went from The Onion and they were writing on talk shows for, I can't remember which one it was, but they're writing for nighttime talk shows, comedy, right?
Mhm,
But from there they wrote The Menu, which
mhm.
is a crazy turn, but you can still see a bit of their voice. So you can get
Right,
established in your field and you can absolutely break out, but you
right.
have to at least find that sweet spot where you're at first. And 3 marketable scripts are key. And I want to pick your brain on this because I'm sure you and I agree on this. But there's a difference between a marketable script and a script that has won a contest.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's kind of the hot topic right now, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, they're 2 different beasts, I think.
Two very different beasts. Absolutely. And I I think there's I think there is value for newer writers to do the contests, right? It's a good
Yeah,
way to kind of like litmus test yourself. It's a good way to like really it's the best thing about entering a contest is even if you make the top, whatever the first round or you make
yeah,
the top 30% or something like that. It's a way for the universe to say, yes, you're heading in
I
the
like
right
that.
direction. This is your thing, keep going.
Yeah,
That's how the very first screenplay contest I ever entered, my very first screenplay I into was this. I don't know why I picked it, but I can still remember waking up in the middle of the night and getting that notice that I was
that's
in the
awesome.
in the finals. And like I'm just like getting it was this little dinky contest that meant nothing to anybody,
Yeah,
but it meant something to me as a new writer. And like I still get kind of excited and emotional about it because it really was that signal that okay, yeah, this is something that I can get good at.
yeah,
And this is something I like doing. I'm going to keep going in this direction. Should I keep entering screenplays contests for the rest of my career? Heck no. Is there a point where it becomes a waste of money and a waste of time? Absolutely.
yeah,
And is it am I writing to win a contest or am I
yeah,
writing to build my career?
exactly.
And you're right. There is an absolute difference because one of the main things that the contest readers look for is, do you know formatting? Do is there a clear arc? Is it easy to read? And those kinds of things.
Yeah,
All of those super important to learn. Also, some of those things the development exec isn't going to give a shit about, but you
right.
have to learn them. Okay, I really want to make sure everybody hears this part, okay? Because it's very important.
All right, everybody, listen in.
Learn the rules first, get good at the rules so that you break them on purpose
Yes.
and for a reason.
No, you're
Okay,
absolutely
we can.
right. That's what I did with Finding Nicole is I broke some of the rules on purpose because I wanted to create a really, really powerful introduction. So
Mhm.
I totally get it. And if you send something like that to a contest, they're gonna, oh, you didn't follow the rules. But if you send it
Right.
to a director, they go, oh, that's a powerful
Yeah,
moment. Yeah, because
exactly.
because you're doing that masterwork at that point.
Right. Right.
Um, so I think I agree with you 100%. Contests, and this is from a guy who runs a contest. Okay. So, I mean, we're getting it, right? Script Summit over here. This contests are great for developing writers. They're fantastic. If you're a developing writer, it shows you where you are in line with your peers. Can
Mhm.
opportunities happen from contests? Absolutely. Opportunities can absolutely happen from contests. But if you're using contests as your sole way of finding success, it's not the right path.
That's
And I will say that. Um,
that's a very good point. I do think that, and that goes back to what I said at the very beginning, right? That there is no one way in.
yeah,
And you're right. If you are focusing, if you're putting all your eggs in that screenplay contest basket, you are you're stifling yourself and you're shooting yourself in the foot, and
yeah,
you're missing some big chunks of your career that you need to be developing as well.
yeah,
Your network, your how do you pitch? How are you in a room? All those things that I
exactly.
talk about every time I come on,
Yeah,
I'm on. But those things are super important too. And it really, you got to get balanced, and you got to kind of pay attention to when is the time to step away from the contest and focus on something else. And
I
it's
totally
not
agree.
when you're losing, by the way. It's not because, oh, I'm losing all the contests, so I must, is it working for me? Get to where you're in the, in a high percentile.
Yeah,
Then say, okay, do I want to keep honing my skill to get better at getting the attention of these contest judges, or is
right.
it time to shift gears?
I have a friend who's an incredible writer, one of the best writers I know, and their work right now is getting read by A-listers. Like big names are reading their work. Things are happening, um, and they got to the point where they won everything, and then they started to lose everything, and they could not place in a contest. And I had to explain to them, um, you're writing beyond the judge's capacity to appreciate what you're doing. And
Yes.
and they didn't land for a second, and then they really thought about it, because at first they're like, "Oh, you're just trying to make me feel better." I'm like, "No, listen, I run contests. Like you're writing, they cannot appreciate the nuance that you're
Mhm.
putting in there. No shade on the readers. It's just that's where you are.
Right.
So if you're at that point to where you're hitting top 5%, right? And then all of a sudden you can't place, that's why. It's not
Mhm.
because you lost your skill. You
Right.
don't get great at riding a bike and then get on a bike and you can't find the pedals, right?
Right.
It's because you've taken it to the next step. And that's where I would say walk away from the contests,
Mhm.
really start finding those other opportunities to make it
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love the way you put that, and it's interesting. As you were telling that story, I was like thinking back to that when that happened for me, and I didn't really recognize that that was happening for that reason. But you're exactly right. I love it. The
Yeah,
other thing
I
I
well,
wanted to bring up was this idea of the right script, right?
mm,
Every writer that you can bring on the show is going to have that one script that got them in the door, right? That kind of
yeah,
finally tipped over the scale for them.
right.
And how do you find that concept? How do you know it's the right thing? I don't know that you necessarily know it is that thing that's going to blow up, but I do think that you can position yourself to have the best chance of that, right? And that comes to commercial viability.
Yeah.
And that's another spot where I know that half of you are going to stop listening because
Do not
not,
stop
I don't
listening
want
to
to be
this show.
commercial, blah, blah, blah. And I want
No.
to invite you, if you are one of those people that get bristly or triggered by the word commercial, ask yourself why. Because if you don't feel like you want to be a commercial writer, then you are probably listening to the wrong show, or at least the wrong episode, because a manager needs to have a commercially viable project from you.
Yeah.
And this is the film business, keyword business. And so if something isn't commercial, then it is not going to make money. And if it's not going to make money, you're not going to get it picked up. And I know that it's sometimes really uncomfortable to think about selling out, right? But
Yeah.
because you have these stories that are so, you do bleed into them, and you put so much of yourself into them, and there may be this, this great little independent story that someday might get picked up, or someday you can make it yourself. But here's the best advice I think I ever got was, I had my mentor. I was kind of in that spot where, like, I had gotten all the traction I could,
Yeah.
and I was sort of stalled out. And so
Yeah.
what should I write next? And that was back when I was writing a lot of drama, character driven,
Okay.
family or coming of age type stuff. And he said, take what you know as a character writer, take all that you've learned, all those skills that you've developed, and put it into a horror thriller script.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
That's
That's
what I
brilliant
want to see,
advice. Yeah, brilliant advice.
right?
Yeah.
And I, at the time, never would have thought of taking that turn. But I was able to do that. And it was that script that popped. It was that
Yeah.
script that got me got me repped and got me on the blood
That's
list,
awesome.
and got in. And I guess I can say this because I don't have any details, that just got sold.
Yay. Well, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. Well, I feel so triggered right now. No, I don't. I just want to talk to you about this. So, because what I'm hearing, and feel free to pipe in here, but I'm seeing two different things here. So there's the commercial writer, like you, like me, right? We're out, we're trying to get stuff made. We're trying to get paid for our blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes.
But
Yes,
for the writers out there, and you were so sweet about this, for the writers out there that, as you said, don't want to sell out, which I don't agree it's selling out, by the way. For the writers out there who are not interested in writing commercially, right? I would call them the auteur, the artist.
Mhm.
Those are the writers, and I want them to hear this. You need to write direct. You need to make it yourself. You need to be a filmmaker, be the writer, be the director, get in a producer who shares your vision, and make the thing.
and go make
Because
it, for sure.
at that point, it's going to be incredibly difficult to make the commercial aspect happen if it's way out of the box, right? But that doesn't mean that it can't find success. It probably just means that it needs your vision to find the success. So
Right.
that's what I would say about that. As far as other writers writing for marketability, I don't see it as selling out. If you are really great at what you do and you can write beyond genre, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't want to be branded and you can write outside of your brand, why wouldn't you want to work in a genre that sells? Like, I don't understand that. We all need
Right.
to eat. We all have rent to pay.
Right.
And especially in this market. So I don't see why you wouldn't take that opportunity. I remember when I wrote a zombie comedy that somehow I queried a guy and it got sent to the head of Frederator, who did the head of Frederator. So he did Fairly Odd Parents and all the Cartoon Network shows.
Cool.
And then he sent it to the head of creativity at Nickelodeon. And then they called me and said, hey, do you have any kid shows? And I said, absolutely. I did not.
You did
I
not,
called
right.
Joanne Hess and I said, we need to write a kid's show right now. We have 3 days. And
Really fast.
So we did. And they loved it, but they passed. But we ended
Mhm.
up turning that into a feature, which is now going to get into a feature script, which is now going to get repped at Con. So there's
Right.
opportunity from opportunity.
Right.
So yeah, I just agree with you.
And
I think
I
that,
use the term selling out sort of facetiously, because obviously I don't feel like I've sold out. I
no,
feel like I put everything I knew and wanted to see in a movie into that script, into that first sellout script. And it really was a very much a representation of who I am as a person and as a
that's
writer.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I think that it was the combination of that, of like my biggest fears and all of my passion and rage and stuff that I was feeling about certain things, that I poured into that script, into a commercially viable concept, that is why it got picked up. why it was why it was the one that kind of blew up, because it wasn't, I didn't just go, hey, I'm going to write a commercial script.
Yeah.
That's not going to sell either, because there's no heart in it.
Right.
It's a combination of those two things, I think. And I think, you know, back to the people who are saying they, you know, I don't want to do commercial. I'm an artist, an artiste.
Yeah.
Then you're probably listening to the wrong episode, because this is the episode on how to get a manager.
Well, the script that popped for me, it took me around the world, and I wrote a script like, I want to write something Hitchcockian. You don't see Hitchcock anymore. And the guy was brilliant. I really sat down and was like, how do I mess with an audience? Like, that's what I thought. That was my first inspiration. And so I started out this thriller as a rom-com, and then at the inciting incident, I kill her off like that. And then it becomes about the guy who killed her. And you're like, holy crap. But that's what Hitchcock would do. He would start it off in a different genre, and then he would change genres, which is like a cardinal sin if you want to talk screenwriting. But if you can pull it off, it's brilliant. I was lucky to pull it off. That led me to my manager, who I actually met on LinkedIn, you know, because I had been querying, and LinkedIn is a great way to make connections. And so and then I ended up getting pitched at Blumhouse. So all of that from that little thing. So I mean, that's pretty cool, you know, have your stuff read at Bloom. I love their stuff. And then they're like, hey, if you have anything else, let us know. So there you go. I mean, it's just things can happen.
And that goes back to, if you weren't branded, that would be a wasted connection.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
If you couldn't go back to them and say, yeah, of course I have another thriller, another something in this similar vein.
Yep.
You know, and now you have a solid connection that you can go back to again and again.
Exactly. Which I can even write for, you know, right in the demographic and genre that they want.
But if you'd gone, no, well, I do, but it's this cute, and I made this mistake. It was very bad in my early days. But if you'd gone back to him and said, well, I don't have another thriller, but I have this this cute little family rom-com, they'd be like, cool, but sorry, we don't have, you know, that's not us, obviously. So that goes back to, going back to the branding
and being open to change. So I had a director producer approach me, and he said, I really love your voice. We sent it out for coverage, and it got crazy good coverage. Are you willing to take the script and change these components of the characters? And I said, why would I have a problem with that?
Right.
and he goes, well, most writers I talk to don't want to do it. And I'm like, I want to see this made, and I want to help you. I would be more than happy to change this up.
Okay, everybody's listening. Rewind that last little bit and listen to that again, because it is probably one of the most important skills that you can learn as a marketable screenwriter.
Yeah, I mean, you take notes. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that actually, we should probably do a whole nother episode on that one, because there's so much of that side of the industry that people, I think, are a little bit afraid of. And I think that there is, there's a, you know, it's such an important piece of being successful in this industry, for sure.
I will absolutely have you come back on the show, Tracee. I would love to. And just as a parting note, that issue that writers have, in my opinion, and trigger warning, it's insecurity.
Insecure, of course.
It's all it is. I mean, and because you're talking to the guy right now who's suffered from like the worst imposter syndrome, where I couldn't get out of bed, and I'm a fraud, and I fooled everybody, and how did this happen? And if they only knew who I really was. Like I have and then insecurity because I'm a writer. So that's where that comes from. If you can't take notes, and how dare you, the how dare you, sir, like that's absolutely ego, has nothing to do. If you're comfortable in your ability to write, and a producer comes to you with notes, you're like, yeah, sure, I can take care of that. But if you can't, but anyway, different episode. Tracee,
Yes.
is there
Oh, and yes,
anything?
there's so much we can dig into on that one too.
Yes.
So let's do that.
Is there anything else before I let you go and live your life that you
I
wanted
would
to
say that my other
chat about?
little kind of it ties into a degree. My other little soapbox that I'm just really going around and like shaking my fist at right now is you're going to hear a lot of people tell you all of the reasons that this is impossible.
Oh, yeah.
And that it's up to you to choose whether you're going to listen to that or find a way to make it work.
God,
If you
I'm
can,
like,
you're either gonna
I'm actually getting emotional right now.
I
Oh,
know. This
that's,
is a big one for me too.
oh,
Mhm. There's so many people that are for themselves and then spreading it around, of course, this
yeah.
darkness of everybody's against you, the doors are all closed, it's the old boys club, it's all of this. And yet
It's
you can come up with a million excuses as to why it's not going to work, or you can find the one way that it's going to.
it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, because I'm gonna tell you right now, Chase, I've been doing this, like I said, I think around 15 years. I'm not great with numbers. Um, the first coverage I ever got, the guy said to me, you should not be screenwriting.
Oh no.
Yeah, he said, this isn't for
Am I
everybody.
allowed to use the F word on the show?
I just bleep it out. You're good. Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, no, exactly. I remember taking my buddy out for a beer. I don't drink, he drinks. I was like, let's go for a beer. I was having like I don't know, like a soda. I think I was having like a Coca-Cola. I'm sitting there and I'm just like, maybe this is it, you know. I thought I found my voice. I thought this was my art. And I'm sitting there
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe I should walk away from this. And
Uh,
then at the bar, a Wookiee walks in, and then a stormtrooper walks in. And it turned out
no.
it was Star Wars night, and they were doing Star Wars karaoke. And I was
Oh
like,
my
well,
God.
if this isn't a sign from God, that I should stick around.
100%.
Yeah,
I got
so
chills.
yeah, it
That is
was
the best
hilarious. Yeah,
story.
because I'm a big Star Wars fan. So I was like, all right, screw it, I'll keep going. And so then I wrote this other script where I wanted to write the Hitchcockian thriller, and it just blew up. It took me everywhere from LA to London.
I love it.
And here I am. I mean, I've written a book on screenwriting that was listed as one of the best of all time. I've got stuff going to cons, so I'm not trying to like put my bona fides out there, but obviously this guy was wrong. Um,
Right.
but I hear that so much. I hear big, big names tell writers, this isn't for you. You shouldn't do this. And it pisses me
Yeah.
off. Because
Yeah.
there will be that one.
Nobody has a right to tell you that.
Yeah, no, there will be
Nobody.
that there, you know, you never know where somebody is at their journey. They could be at that last step of their journey where they just need a little bit of encouragement. But instead you tell them it's not for them and they walk away. And then that person
Yeah.
who says that it's their fault for walking away, they weren't strong enough, they don't deserve to be it. And I'm like, shame on you. Shame on you for not supporting this person who is just trying to express themselves. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't know where someone is in their path as a developing writer. It really
Right.
bothers me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, I was in a screenwriting group and somebody posted this like kind of long thing of all of the ways that this is an impossible journey and you should probably just give up now. And I
Uh,
just I
I
couldn't
can't.
believe it. I could like this is not what we're here for. And
No.
so it's like again, I just think if I have one, this should be on my tombstone. But if you like that, if there's you can come up with 1,000 excuses. You can come up with them yourself. You can listen to other people's bullshit.
Yeah.
You can and own it,
Yeah.
or you can find a way to make it work and start knocking down those doors.
Yeah. It's not easy, but nobody says it
It's
is.
not easy.
It's a path.
Absolutely
It's a
not.
path and it's a journey.
Mhm.
And it's also finding success for yourself. It's not just finding like what success is for other people. Is success winning an Oscar, or is success optioning a screenplay, or is
Right.
success winning a contest? right?
Right.
What is your version of success? And go
Right.
from
Or is it
there.
your success getting that one person that you respect to say, damn, this was good?
Exactly. All right, Tracee, you're a beautiful person. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's always such a pleasure.
I think you've invited yourself back on for another episode, so I guess we're gonna have to make that happen. Oh no, oh, I'm so sad about it.